Hey there everyone, happy Saturday. In this video, I want to go over 3 stocks that I think could be the best stocks to buy now. You might want to check them out. We're going to start off with the wildest and go to the least wild. We'll actually start things off surprisingly with DJT stock. And this is from a technical basis, but there's some things that I think are very, very interesting about where we find ourselves right now and what could potentially be coming our way based on what we see on those charts. And then next after that is Lucid, LCID is that ticker symbol. And we know about the partnership with Uber and talking about robo-taxis, 20,000 vehicles to be ordered. And could this be the start of something big for them, especially from where their price is at right now? And then finally, the least wild of these, but probably also the least risky, but might have the greatest promise to it, of course, is Apple stock, AAPL. And I got some technicals that I think you're going to find highly interesting with that chart as well. So 3 big old interesting stocks to share with you. Guys, you can check them out here as you wish, and we want to watch for those movements coming. And if I do happen to trade on these, I will let the people know over in the Discord. You can find that link down in the description. So let me pop this up here for you. So DJT, what in the world am I seeing on here that makes this thing anything worth looking at? Well, let's reset the view on here and just zoom out on this thing, and you can see just a wild ride that it's taken over time. And you can see this top trend line that we have when this thing popped up over, holy cow, over $170 per share. 175 is where this thing peaked out all the way back in October of 2021. It looks like that's wild. And we've had several different peaks since then, around $100, around $78. This thing also peaked at around $54. And so it has been on the decline. And I'm not saying that it's one that is going to be holding out for long periods of time, but I do think that we're getting to an interesting point with the technicals where we can see that next big move coming. So in terms of best stock to buy now, maybe in like a swing trade type of way, we might start seeing some, oh my goodness, we might be seeing some signs that show that, something big could be coming our way in the next several days to several weeks. And so I'll show you what I want you to watch out for. So one of the things I want you to watch out for, and let's drag that up. There we go. Look at the volume that we have in here as the stock was kind of falling off, and we have this nice lulling period in here of consolidation. And more recently, after a big old drop that happened back here where we lost about 10%, the volumes have picked up since that time, and now the RSI is starting to creep up. That's this one right here. The RSI is starting to show us that rise over time as well, getting near bullish, and it doesn't mean it's going to flip that way, but we do want to watch, because when it does, we're probably going to get a pretty significant movement out of this to the upside, which I think it makes it highly intriguing and highly worth watching right now as this next trading week comes up for us. So check this out in terms of the EMAs that are on here. And also we have some trendline support as well. And we most recently had, well, a higher low come off of this and a lower high. So we could be starting to see that narrowing time where we could break higher. Now about the moving averages on here, you can see the green and the yellow. That is the 13 period in yellow, the 5 period in green. We had a cross above them. We were sitting above them, had a pretty big sell down, 2.56%. Took us right back down to those moving averages. Closed just below them with the market close on Friday. But if we can stay above them, we might find ourselves pushing up on this 50 period up at $20.18. Getting up above that 50 period is where things start to get really interesting, especially because it could signal for us a higher high coming in after a higher low has come in for us. So we want to watch and see if that does indeed happen. That can also mean more bullish crossovers between the 5 and the 50 and the 13 and the 50. So I think that makes this fairly interesting to watch. On a weekly basis, the RSI is showing just the slightest signs of climbing. And then we got to watch out for this right here. This is a little bit of selling pressure, but that's closing below the 5 EMA, closing below the 5 EMA. So if we can close up above that 5 EMA, which currently happens to be at $18.90 as I make this video, that could be a sign where we start to turn things around. Maybe we come back here, we retest this support line one more time. We're going to have to watch and see, but I do think that this thing's creeping up on us, and when it does move up, it's probably going to be pretty substantial, and we might be able to get some hints as to the timing, and the hints right now are suggesting that we might be close, but we got to be able to stay on top of those EMAs, especially on the daily chart, and we can see that continued rise over top of the RSI, crossing back over 50. So popping this back up here for you and switching over to Lucid, let's go down to the daily chart just because it's fun to see this pop that we got here. If you watch my previous videos, you know I snagged at 650% off this move that we got. And that play was actually entered because of the triple bottom that we got And I started seeing signs of accumulation recently, just very small. Over here, you can see just how low the volumes were. Started to accumulate, especially as we hit that triple bottom, a little bit more than before, a little bit more than that last bottom, making the double bottom. And then for this triple bottom, we got even more volume coming out of that for Lucid there. I'll stretch it out so you can really see that uptick in volume over time, where it was so subdued before, and this thing kind of got forgotten about, that it got more and more interesting over time. And then finally we got that pop coming out of it, and so that was really nice. One of the Discord members reporting that they got a 10x out of that, over 1,000% gain on those options plays that we took out. I believe that date was June the 23rd. I would have to go and take a look at that, but we have the RSI overbought for the time being right now, and I think this could actually be one that would be more interesting for long-term positioning. I just don't know as much about DJT or Truth Social to even talk about that one. But Lucid Motors, it is a company that I like in terms of the spirit of it and what it's trying to do in the products that it puts out. Even though I haven't gotten to try one yet, I would definitely like to. I find it intriguing, and I think so do a lot of other people. And so this is a company that, if they're able to actually stop the cash burn and start to turn over to more of a cash flow positive sort of state, it's going to be no looking back on something like this. On a weekly basis, you can see that climb in the volumes as well with the triple bottom, and you can see that volume punch that we got that took us up above the 50, the 13, and the 5. So for Lucid, we have that intrigue, that interest that comes along with it. Get the reverse stock split here that takes it from we get 1 share out of every 10 shares is what it comes out to be. It's a 1 to 10 reverse stock split. So if you have 100, you're going to end up with 10, but they're going to be worth 10 times as much. So it causes no net difference, except for maybe being able to sell options against your shares. You still need 100 at a time. So in any case, I should say sell calls, specifically the covered calls against your shares. So for Lucid, I think that Lucid is absolutely one that we should be watching for over time, because I think that this move could just be getting started on us. That we could see once we find out where the floor is for this thing. I think that things start to really pick up in interest again if we do turn back in the near term. So finally, for Apple, this is the weekly chart that we're looking at for Apple, and the RSI has crept up. It has risen since a low on this thing around 32, so just about that oversold period. Back at that week of liberation, actually it was the week before that we dropped so low, we actually crept up a little bit to 36, even though we bottomed out here, and that's because of the rise, that sharp rise that we've had in that same week that we had that sharp fall. Well, we've been in a consolidation period since that point in time, making this a nearly symmetric triangle pattern, but we have broken out of the top of it as of that week that started the first week of July of trading, last day of June, that June 30th. And now we have 2 fairly indecisive candles, but we have some important things to pay attention to in terms of the moving averages. For instance, when we got this candle right here, it put us above the 5, the 13, and the 50. And then this next candle over got rejected at the 50, but found support at the 5 and the 13. Next candle still support at the 5 and the 13. We're finding that buying pressure come in for Apple. This thing could really start turning around for us pretty darn sharply, with a lot more safety than you would find in Lucid as a penny stock right now, in DJT just being hammered over time, just not really one of the producers in terms of stocks yet, a little bit more politically affiliated. And like I said, I don't know too much of the fundamentals of DJT, pretty much none at all. So I will say that I wouldn't have the slightest clue where the revenue would come from for that. If it gets advertisement revenue on Truth Social, I just don't know it. But I do think from a technical basis, it's still interesting. Same thing for Lucid. Apple, when we look at the daily chart, let's drop back to that. There we go. Look at the moving averages on here, because we have even more interest here. And you can see the sideways chop that we had, and something that resembles a bit of a bull pennant on this. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 rejections off the 200 EMA, and it's going flat on us. We want to punch through that. If we do, that's that next bullish sign that we're looking for. We already have the 5 above the 13, above the 50, leaving room for more bullish crosses to come over. If we're able to continue to the upside, the RSI is up above 50, so we're bullish on a daily basis, near it on a weekly basis. And if we go out to the monthly, this is actually something pretty gorgeous that you want to see. And I can show you that historically, this has been the case for Apple, and it might just continue to be. And I'll even talk more fundamentally in just a moment. I'll give a little bit of commentary about what I think is going to turn things around for Apple. So Apple has just tagged at 49.98 on the RSI. That was back here in May. June starting to turn things around, where we're just slightly above that candle that we had in May in terms of the lows that we got, and then July so far up a little bit more. We do want to get on top of those moving averages here. So for the moving averages, we want to get on top of the 5 and the 13 if we can. That's further bullishness for us. You can see in those bullish movements across the months that we ride on top of the moving averages instead of dangling off them like we are right now. So we still are sort of bearish in a monthly case, at least as per that metric, not necessarily that's near term, very near term. Overall, we're still bullish because the 200 is all the way down here and we're above the 50. It's just the 5 and the 13, the nearest moving averages that I have on here for you that we're dangling off of. So we still are overall in bullish territory. So the RSI, when we tag 50 for Apple, we don't normally stay down there very long. We got close to it back in April of 2024. We actually dipped below it when we look back to December 22 and look at the price action that took place afterwards. A little bit of chop in there. So if you thought that was the case going back to June of 2022, you actually had to wait several months until January of 2023 for that big uptrend to really take place. But if we keep on going back in history, there's a bottom and we tag just around 50 and then up we go. And then go back a little bit further until we get back into 2016. And so we had a little bit of yuckiness that was in here as well. There we go, stretch that out for you so we can see a little bit more of the price action. So yeah, the prices were down, but as soon as we flip back on top of those moving averages, that's another sign when you combine it with the RSI that it became time for that stock price to start ripping once again. And that was actually, it looks like a pretty decent rip, about 100% gain over that time for that rip that you got. Because for the monthly basis, you actually signal longer term trends as more so than what you would do for the daily or the weekly. So we're bullish on monthly. We are darn near bullish momentum on the weekly, rising RSI just barely tickling 50 right now. And then we go down to daily. We are bullish but not overbought on this thing. So guys, I'm going to summarize this thing for you. So for DJT, we got our fingers crossed that it turns into something. Right now, it's not anything, but it very much could turn into pretty darn wild gains sometime in the near future, and I think it's starting to get intriguing. Lucid, I think it still has a big story to tell, and we could see that happening in the very near future. It could have already started making that movement with that first catalyst being that Uber announcement that we see. And then for Apple, I mentioned that fundamental idea that I have for Apple, and right now they're kind of getting kicked to the ground between tariffs and being behind in the AI race, but they have one thing that speaks the universal language of business, and that is cash, my friends. They have access to capital, and that is absolutely huge for them. So they just need to make the right acquisitions. They need to put the money into the right places, and we could see sky's the limit on a stock like Apple. And I do think that through the end of 2025, assuming that the market itself doesn't go into the gutter, through the end of 2025, Apple could be looking very pretty and sitting much higher than it is right now. We could see that next 10 to 20% being stacked on top of Apple with the right announcements coming into place and with the right background market bias as well. It definitely could take place, and right now the technicals are suggesting that now's a pretty darn attractive time to visit Apple. Not financial advice, but I'm just thinking for myself and sharing it with you guys what I'm seeing on the charts and from what I know about the stock market and finance. You guys can let me know down in the description what you think of this video and the commentary that I have. Are there other things that I should be considering? Am I missing out on anything that absolutely should be included? Do you want to talk more with me, the experts, and the thousands of members over at the Discord community? The link's in the description. Do you want to know more about technical analysis? Would you like to build more alpha in your portfolio? Would you like to be better at working towards financial freedom? There's coursework through Stockmo Academy, also down in the description, that you can sign up for technical analysis course, including technical trading, and then also the course for options, which I use all the time to build alpha in my portfolio. You guys can do it too. That coursework, use code word doctor when you sign up. The Discord, use code word doctor when you sign up. Going to save you a ton of cash when you use code word doctor, regardless of the link. And I think that you're going to really enjoy what you find over there, same as the thousands of members who have already signed up. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning. We'll see you next video.